benefit of an auction house where upgrades and answers are immediately available to people. Um, what was good today is going to be worse tomorrow, and so it's a sliding scale of what's acceptable and what you can make money off of, and you're not guaranteed. If I buy a 10 million weapon today, it depends on what you buy. It depends on the affixes that you invest in, and if it's not the best of the best, it's not an investment in gold. You're going to be losing gold on that item the longer that you use it. So there's also this rush to continually upgrade. Otherwise, the items you purchased won't net you anything on a resale. So there's an innate pressure to keep playing. It's really intuitively genius on Blizzard's part. I don't necessarily think they deserve all the credit that they thought this through that far. I think a lot of it is a very nice coincidence that it's working out from this way, because there are just too many nice inherent benefits to setting up an economy this way that and with all the mistakes they've made so far, I really don't think that you can give them all the credit. I just think it is really turning out in their favor. Back to the item. Nothing here. Shoulders that just can't compete. There's definitely some unsexy slots, such as pants, chest, belt, shoulders, that from a DPS perspective, that you really can't get crit damage, you can't get attack speed, you can't get crit, you can't get life on hit. You're just stuck with a primary, vitality, resist all, and maybe some life regen, and you got to make do with those kind of slots and just stack as many stats as you possibly can. Maybe try and find magic find on those spots, since you wouldn't be sacrificing possibly an offensive stat roll for it there. So it's got strength and maybe some crit damage, but that's just not going to cut it. If it had natural crit in a socket, 700 might just be enough. Resist all, physical, but there's no primary here, so no one's going to care. And more importantly, it's going to be filtered out of people's searches, because no matter who's looking, they're going to be putting in their primary stat. And this is going to come up on no one's fields. Same goes for this one. No primary stat. Here's decent. Dexterity, vitality, and 842. Now, this is going to take a very modest buyer to be interested, because it doesn't have anything very interesting on it. It doesn't have life on hit, it doesn't have crit damage, doesn't have a socket, there's no attack speed. But it does have a primary, it does have a lot of vitality for a weapon, and it's got decent numbers. So that one might take a couple postings to sell, but we'll see how much that one's worth. This is just an absolute bare bones helm. There's nothing really to speak of here. Just not going to have enough to attract a buyer. The average quality level of items in the auction house that you can get, even for 100,000 gold right now, is remarkable. Last night I thought I had a decent pair of pants. It had a 120 dexterity, 120 vitality, and movement speed, and a really low resist all roll, and there was a competing couple of pairs up for 150,000. So it's really surprising how quickly the average quality level is rising. Life on hit, vitality, and just 500. Destroys any hopes. Again, a couple primaries, some life on hit, but it's 500 damage. decent magic find roll, but all it's got is a little bit of strength. It's worth showing in the auction house. I'm 99% sure this isn't worth anything. People are much more picky with their magic find now that everyone's selling magic find gear. If this was like a high gold find roll, that pickup radius would be a nice selling point. But it's incredible that magic find now really does require a complete piece plus magic find. They're looking at for magic find as a bonus on an item, not to replace something that's vital, like vitality. Yeah, I just said that. So we've got damage, intellect, crit damage, and a little bit of life regen. So 5 weapon DPS really isn't enough to warrant an affix spot there, so that's not going to push someone either way on choosing this ring. So essentially you've just got same thing with the life regen. It's not, people really don't search for it. They're going to much rather have life on hit rather than life regen, even though the stats are much closer than many people give it credit for in terms of what it benefits you. People don't realize that, you know, depending upon their playstyle, life regen may net them more, especially in important times when they're needing to separate from a mob for a bit, when they're not going to be hitting. And a lot of times they haven't looked up their actual coefficient numbers for the different spells and abilities they have, and they really aren't getting the amount of life on hit that they think they are. For example, for my stuff, Blizzard's not getting me anything. It's 2% per hit per tick, and that's just absolutely negligible on a life on hit. If I had 1,000 life on hit, which I don't, I only got 700. If I had 1,000, that would only be 20 life back from a blizzard tick on an enemy. So, and the hydras don't heal at all. So all I've got it is from is the arcane torrent. So having a decent little chunk of life regen is certainly worthwhile, but it's something like I consider life percentage to be roughly equatable to vitality on an item if you do the math and come out with a similar number, so long as you recognize what your your total health would be without the actual vitality numbers that you'd be sacrificing for that life percentage roll. I see those as fairly equivalent and a smart way to find items that are maybe underpriced. But in terms of like bonus affixes, you've got your regenerating life per second, you've got an individual resist stat, physical, fire, arcane being the primary ones, and then poison, lightning, cold being the less desirables. That type of affix is really something that I think you can find for free on very similarly priced items, and that's what you want to do if you're getting a free stat that isn't as valuable, certainly, but when you can get it on 4 or 5 pieces, you know, there's 140 life regen here, if you can put that on 5 pieces, and or armor, for example, is another one like that. People definitely search for resist all, and that's going to reduce your elemental damage intake, certainly. But armor can do the same thing in a different way, and is roughly equivalent in a 10-to-1 ratio. If I've got 200 armor on a piece, it's roughly, depending upon your own numbers, negating the same amount of damage, 200 armor being about 20 resist all. So there are ways to look for equivalent affixes and save yourself a bit of money, especially if you're coming down to a hard decision between a couple pieces. But if you prioritize looking for those bonus stats on gear, that's really where you're gonna get your money's worth. And not only that, but evaluating the gear smartly when you purchase it. The longer the game goes on, people's awareness of what's valuable can only go up. People aren't gonna forget the important choices in the economy. People are only going to, even if it's at a slow pace, people are only going to increase their overall awareness of what is valuable and what sells and what gets bought quickly. So, if anything, knowing about those additional little bonus affixes now just might net you 5, 10, 20% better on your resale of your item when you want to upgrade. Horrible little belt. Nothing to speak of. Decent damage roll here, and then you got your choice of strength or intellect. Problem is most people don't search for the damage affix. So to most people's filtered searches, this isn't a very sexy ring. It's not going to have crit or crit damage or life on hit or attack speed, so it's worth checking this out though, just to show you how I would search for an equivalent item, since you can't search for damage. But I don't think that's going to sell, but it's worth showing you how to compare the damage affix. Unfortunately, this is just too low of a resist all roll to be worth anything. Too low on a two-hander. The affixes here just don't cut it. That 692 number is dragging it down. It's still going to drown. You've got a little bit of dex and vitality. You've got some attack speed. The quivers are something I don't think this sells. I think you need much better stats, but a quiver is something that I need to at least look up for later, so I'm going to keep that for my own knowledge. It's got a ton of dexterity and intelligence and nothing important. Not enough. Competing primary stats and a decent resist all. No movement, no vitality. Decent block percentage, vitality, fire resist, really good resist all roll, but it's got no primary stat, it's got no critical chance, so it doesn't have a chance. Disgustingly low numbers. Again, very low numbers. Vitality is just way too low, and there's no third primary stat. Or no third valuable stat, I should say. 699 on a two-hander is not going to cut it. Gold and pickup radius, but the gold roll is really low, so it's not going to work. Again, just too low. Block chance is way too low here to even bother looking at the rest of it. I would say the block chance and crit chance are the two things that's going to immediately determine whether a shield is worth your time evaluating it or not. Not enough on this. Chest, again, lacking a primary stat of any sort is going to negate its presence. It's as if it doesn't even exist in the auction house. People just aren't going to see it. Primary rolls here are just way too low. It's got a really nice crit chance. Anything above 7.5 is pretty decent, but that's all it has. Too low. Too low. Too low. Man, are we gonna go an entire other 2.5 tabs with nothing really valuable? Triple primary stats and nothing else. It's not good enough for a 700. Dex, vitality, life, and a low gold. Nope. Blocks too low, no crit chance.